Hello, folks. This is Buster coming to you again. How y'all doing today? Well, I thought I'd kind of bring you up to date. We got a couple new stories today. We got The Cave first, so I'll read that. I want y'all to know, you probably see this little thing on my nose there. Well, nobody hit me. I didn't run into a door. I have that breathing mask at night, so that's what's doing it. Oh, Isaac he's my brother. He's filming it for us today. And we'll get on into this story. I don't know. I didn't think I'd be writing any more stories, but this happened to come to me, so I'll kind of explain them as we go along. The Cave. Well, Hired hollered up to Buster to get his and self down here. "What you doing up there in the barn hayloft?" said Hired. "I was gathering eggs for Grandma," says Buster. "Them hens done got out and laid up here." "Well, hurry and skedaddle down here so we can get gone," hollered Hired. "We is a burning daylight." "Well, your cantankerment is a mite riled, I'd say," said Buster. "Well, you don't know the half of it," said Hired. "Your Grandma Clara said you can light on out with me right now. We is going to be gone for a few days. Just don't know how long till Pa tells us." "You mean Big Jim has got something in the works?" says Buster. "Sure enough. Get on over here and I'll tell you all about it all." Well, Buster hit the ground a running and picked up Hired and give him a big old bear hug. "You's a squozing the air out of me, you big lug. Turn me loose," said Hired. "Grab what you might need for the trip and let's go." "Well, Pa let me out here and said to drive your old Ford and meet 'em up with all of 'em there at the old mill in North Little Rock. And Pa said to come as quick as you can." Well, get a little tongue-tied about this. There's a place called the Old Mill that's on the historic register. It's a recreation in 1880s water-powered grist mill. It was in the opening scenes of Gone with the Wind. I'm just kind of letting you folks know what it is, and the ones that y'all email me, I send you all the pictures and research and so forth. But that's what the Old Mill is. It's in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Continuing on with the story. Well, Jesse, Darrell, Walter is already on their way with Grandpa Gus and Mr. McBrayer. Now, Mr. Ollinger is having his hands full with the calving and all of his and other boys that's helping him on out. You just can't believe who all is meeting up with us there. Well, spill the beans, Hired, before I get fractious and skunt your head. Well, Brenniger is strong as an ox, and the Po boys, Huzzabell, Cuzzabell, and Methuzzabell, and the Fernie Hoe triplets, Festus, Fergus, and Furl, is a-coming as well as most of the Bee clan from over across Candy Creek. The Bee boys would be, should be, could be, and may be, and their sister Honeybee is all coming too. I know them names is sure a mouthful, I'll tell you, but I hear tell their ma and pa said they named them all just like they come out. Well, Buster give her the gase, and him and Hired hightailed it to the Old Mill. When they got there, they found everybody was there too. Lo and behold, Cowboy Bill Kimmel side-fodled over to Buster and said, "You ain't a-gonna go on no adventure without me this time." Big Jim stopped over in Canyon on the way home from getting a new piece of equipment, and I seed him over to the Calico County getting something to eat. I said howdy, and he asked me to sit there and for a spell and began to telling me what he was a-planning on. I asked him if and I could come along for the ride, and he allowed that for sure. He needed a real-life wrangler for the job there in the Ozarks. Said he sure would appreciate it, and Buster and the boys would be proud to see him. Now, mules was to be had up there, so he needed to worry none about that. "Bill, you are a sight for sore eyes. Been a while, ain't it?" Then Buster grabbed a holt of Bill and all them whiskers of his'n and squoze him and kissed his old head. "Bill, on the way home I got something for you." "What's that?" said Bill. "A Henry 45-70. I seed a feller shoot it at 1,806 yards and no scope. That's long distance, or long range shooting, you know. Of course, I know you don't do none of that, but I got it off a feller from Remington when the plant outside of Little Rock went out of business. I beat him a arm wrestling, don't you know. I know you've been a-wanting one, so now you do." Bill said, "Dang it, Buster, you can sell the thing and get a pretty penny for it." It ain't no need. Nope, it's yours. Them pickled okra is more than enough for it. But I will take one of them big old burritos you give me the time I was out your way and a bowl of your chili to boot. Done and done, said Bill. Well, Big Jim called everybody around, told them all what all was going on and how he needed their help. They would be camping just outside of Rover, Arkansas. The women folk and some of the men folk would help with the cooking. The rest of the men would be loading out Mozarkite. Mozarkite deposit was found near there outside of Rover, and the governor wanted to write smart of it for the Capitol building, plus some would go to the old mill for a display there. Well, Big Jim and Grandpa Gus and Mr. McBrayer would head up the digging and loading. Cowboy Bill would wrangle the mules and get up and down the mountain. Ain't no equipment or trucks can go there, you know. Now the rest of the men would have to tote the Mozarkite and fill up the wagons to be took to the trucks. Some of the state parks and geology folks would help as well. Well, that Mozarkite is hard for me to say, folks, so don't get me to lying, but it's a true thing. And most of the Mozarkite that you see is right at the northern part of Arkansas and Missouri, and it's the Missouri State Rock, just to give you a little something about it. We got some pictures and tells you about that too. The next day was all about setting up camp proper like and seeing the body's needs. There was a mess tent and tents for sleeping and an outhouse set up and a corral for the mules. Big Jim had a jackhammer set up on his excavator, and Mr. McBrayer had his testing equipment for testing for gases and such when the tunneling was done. Well, everybody got some grub for supper and then got a good night's sleep. The next morning, everybody was up bright and early before the rooster crowed and had a humdinger of a breakfast. Of course, y'all folks know when I write stories, I got to tell you what we eating. There was eggs and flapjacks and ham steak, beef steak, bacon and sausage and cat head biscuits with sorghum molasses and honey and home churned butter and some of Cowboy Bill Kimball's sand plum jelly he got off the Canadian. Coffee was aplenty along with ice cold milk that was kept in the cold mountain creek next to the camp. Then it was all about work. All the boys broke up into teams and got with it. The bee boys, the ferny hoes, and the pole boys each had a team. Walter helped out Cowboy Bill with the stock, and Jesse took care of tallying up the Mozarkite and other record keeping the government wanted done. Now Buster did take lead on the pole boys, and Hired took the ferny hose, and Woodby took up his clan of the bees. The first part of the week went to jackhammering out the ore and building a staging area. Crates and pallets was brung up along with ore carts and wheelbarrows. Work was progressing real good, but all of them took off after Big Jim took out a chunk of rock that revealed a cave. In finding the cave, Big Jim and Mr. McBrayer discovered noviculite, which they knowed was Arkansas stone. Now, folks, this is true. It's the only place found, here in Arkansas. Got a little warm here. And it's called Arkansas stone, but the real name of it is noviculite. And the black stone, or the translucent, is the most expensive. But I've got everything about that in there. And there's a feller named Ben Kirschman, Whetstones, that has that in Arkansas. And it's well known worldwide. So if you're interested in that, you can look it up. Or if you write me, like I said, at Buster and the Boys at yahoo.com, I'll send everything to you. Well, Big Jim and Mr. McBrayer called everybody together and told them all they had discovered noviculite, Arkansas stone, and would have to get with the governor's office, Arkansas Parks and Recreation and Geology departments too, about their discovery before going ahead with their mining. But I reckon we could still keep on getting the Mozarkite. Well, let's finish up with what we got dug out and load it, and then we will just sit a spell and see what comes back from the governor and what he has to allow. This evening we can all go to Top's Pizza over in Rover, and I'll do the buying, said Big Jim. Well, everybody cheered for that, I'm here to tell you. Whilst eating his and pepperoni thin crust 20-inch pizza, Buster see Jesse and Hired come up, and they said they had an idea. Ooh, I know this was coming, look out. Walter come over too, and they all sit down and wanted in on the adventure. "What adventure?" said Buster. "Spelunking," says Jesse. "Let's take a gander in that there cave." Now wait a minute. I don't really think Big Jim will go for that at all. It might not even be safe. "We ain't a-going in very far," says Howard. "Just a little peek." "You mean to tell me all y'all want to gom around in that there cave?" "Yep," said Walter. "Ain't no telling what's in there. Just might be something good." Now listen, boys, especially to you two, Howard and Walter. I know both of y'all ain't afeard of wing walking or any flying machine, but I know darn well y'all both got the claustrophobia. I got a right smart bit of it myself. Well, we got lights and rope, and we don't aim to go in fur like we said. We just want to look around in there for a few minutes. Well, all the boys said to come on now, Buster. We probably will never get another chance for adventure like this. We never been in no cave. Well, what about when we was stuck in that hole with them darn snakes and Dade folks next to the river, said Buster, and Big Jim had to get us out. That tweren't really no cave, says Howard. This is a real life for sure mountain cave. Walter says to Buster, "If you don't go with us, I'm going to eat the rest of your pizza." Well, that done it. Guess it won't do if I don't go along with your crazy idea, but I am for sure a mite fractious about it all. I'm going to carry my own light and possibles, that's for sure. I ain't going to be caught in the dark with no light. Well, let's see what all tomorrow brings and then decide what to do. How's that, boys? All of them said it was a plan and they'd get their gear together. Now quit your jawing and let a feller eat in peace, said Buster. Well, all the boys laughed at that, I'm a-telling you, and knowing how that boy could eat. Now the next day, Big Jim and Mr. McBrayer and Grandpa Gus met up with the governor over in Russellville at the Polk County Judge's office. He was a friend of the governor. The governor had a meeting there and asked them to meet him there too. The governor met up with the men and called them all by their first names, Jim, Mac, and Gus, as he knowed them all. He told them what all was going on and wanted them to keep all this meeting on the down low, till his and folks at the Capitol figured out how they was going to release the information on the mine and find of the Arkansas stone. Well, what we got here is a mine that nobody knowed about and really wasn't supposed to be here. Plus, we got Arkansas stone that no other state has got. Dan Kirschman pretty well got that sewed up in this part of the country with his 500 acres and other contacts. I called him and asked him if he would mine ours here since this is state land. He said he would be proud to do so. This gives the state of Arkansas additional revenue, which we need in these days. Also, the Mozarkite mine is a big deal as nobody knowed it was here and was enough to even mine. What we got planned is to make it a state park and have it open to the public like the diamond mine over in Murfreesboro. Again, it'd be something for the citizens of Arkansas and any visitor from around the world. You know, they come find them diamonds over here all the time. There is going to be an announcement and a press release and a dedication at the state capitol, and I want all y'all to be there. Jim, I would like you to give me a progress report on everything y'all do up there and your opinion of any developments. The geology and mining folks will be around to consult with you if they come up with anything or you need them. Mac, I spoke to Southern Natural Gas and told them I needed you for a spell, and they said I could have you for however long it took. Gus, I know you got a farm to run, but I got the agriculture department to help run your place till you're no longer needed here either. Reckon y'all can do this for me? Sure enough, said all the men. We is proud to help you in the state. Now, Jim, you submit all your expenses, including Mac and Gus, in your hands. I trust you to be fair, so no more to be said about that. I already know what you're going to do, so I already doubled it. Call me if you need anything, and thanks for y'all coming. Oh, by the way, Jim, you got a contract with the state from now on, whatever you want to do with this operation. Just write it up when we get this all settled, and I'll sign it. Well, ain't this a hoot, said Grandpa Gus. Like it or not, we are in it till the end, I reckon. Boy, this little rock job was supposed to be just a few days, and now we're finding out we're here for right smart a time, said Big Jim. What do you two have to say about it all? Well, we done give a word to the governor, so we is going to stick like glue. Huh, Mac? Yep, Mac said. Jim, we need some of them newfangled phones to make this happen for our families and business. You reckon we could get a few of them trailers and portable outhouses too? Well, Gus, if you and Buster can run back over to Russellville at the National Guard there, you can get everything we need. Mac, you and Jesse set up a little office in one of them mobile office trailers. And let's keep Walter and Bill wrangling the mules and let them know we're bringing up 2 more teams. I'm a-sending Hired back to our place and get some more heavy equipment. Looks like we're going to need a bit of a road to let us get closer. There just ain't no way to make it to where we is mining unless we take down the mountain, and that would defeat the whole purpose as I see it. What you think, Gus? Mac? Well, I think we all agree to that, but the job can still get done without making it a parking lot, so let's get her done. Take a little longer, but like the governor says, keeps it on the down low. Jim, you and Mike hungry? Said Grandpa Gus. We left out before daylight, and there sits the steakhouse. Pull in there and let's get a bite before heading on back. Suits me, said Mac. I'm a-buying since the state is footing the bill, said Big Jim. I like your thinking, Jim, said Grandpa Gus. Well, after eating, the menfolk headed on back to the mine site. When they got there, Big Jim called all the folks working in for an update and asked if any of them wanted to go home. No, they said, we all gonna stay. Things will get to be a little more comfortable soon, Jim said, and y'all can take a break and go home for a visit if you want to. Bill, hold up for a minute, please, hollered Big Jim. The governor called your people and let them know what we was doing and talked to them about you staying with us for a spell. You call them and talk to them and figure out if you want us to stay with the boys. Now, you ain't a-working for free, so know you will get a paycheck. Oh, Big Jim, I wasn't going to ask for nothing, said Bill. Well, you're going to get one, so that's that. Now, light on out and talk to your folks and let me know your answer. Okay? We'll do it right now, but I can already tell you I'm a-staying put. Big Jim just winked at old Bill and said, I knowed you would. It took the rest of the week to get all the equipment and get set up, but everything was purring like a kitten. It come up on Saturday afternoon and Big Jim let everybody off for the weekend. Work was going really good and most of the menfolk and workers took off for home. Well, Buster and the boys decided to leave out on Sunday morning and get in a little exploring in the cave that afternoon. Then eat a bite and rest up and leave on out before daylight to get home to have supper with their folks. They didn't figure to be exploring more than an hour or so. Well, Jesse and Hired led the way with Walter and Buster coming up behind. The cave angled downhill for a bit and then leveled out. Jesse was gomming around looking at the mosarkite and noviculite and crystals and such. Walter went ahead after he done seed some stalactites and stalagmites. They were awful pretty, that's for sure. A body could still see daylight from the cave entrance, so Buster wasn't worried none about getting out. All the boys was having a high old time exploring when Buster told the boys to sit a spell and take a break for some water and cold fried peach pies and apple fried pies that they had that their mama sent them. After jawing about the work and plans after they got home, Walter looked over and said he see the offshoot where it split off from the main cave and lit out for it. Buster hollered for him to wait up, but he was took to see what all it was and where it went. Couldn't hold him down. Of course, the rest of the boys followed Walter. Walter hollered out to come and see what he done found. It was a turquoise vein, near about a foot or so wide, and up a bit was something in the quartz that looked like gold. Now, Jesse said it was probably fool's gold, but he said that they ought to take a sample of it all. Well, Hired said he would run on back and get a hammer and chisel and a lantern and would be right on back. The boys kept on looking around whilst Buster was on the lookout for Hired. The cave entrance could barely be seen from where they was, but Buster still felt good about seeing daylight. Well, Hired got on back with a couple of sets of tools and some sacks, and the boys went to chiseling out the samples. The boys kept on going further into the cave and taking samples whilst Buster followed up in the rear. Buster didn't want to lose his way, so he had some chalk for marking their path with. Jesse hollered for Buster to come on up to where they was to help tote the sample sacks back to the front of the cave. About that time, Buster heard Walter caterwauling and Jesse and Hired a-hollering for help. Walter done fell through a hole, and Hired and Jesse was skun up a-trying to get him out. Well, Buster had his and rope and his and pack, and knowed he could get the boys out of here and this pickle they're in too. First and up was Hired, and he said they needed more light and went to light his lantern. "Hold up," said Jesse. "I smell something." But it was too late. It was natural or methane gas for sure, and it sure enough made a bang. All their ears was a-ringing. I reckon the explosion could have been worser, but for some reason the explosion blew towards the entrance. "Well, we was in a pickle now," said Buster, "but I gotta get Walter out of that hole before we can do anything else." Well, after Buster throwed down the rope to Walter and had him tied around him, and then Buster pulled him up, and he's lucky he wasn't too far down. Well, after all the boys got settled and checked themselves over to see if they was hurt bad or bleeding, they began to see if they could get back out the cave. None was hurt, not bad at all, just gone up. The boys followed Buster back to where they went in the tunnel that split off from the main cave, but it was blocked tighter than Dick's hat band. It would take heavy equipment and time to dig out of there. Well, boys, I got an idea. First off, we never want to get to where we don't have no light. Let's see what all we got for light. "I got half a dozen glow sticks and 2 lights and a pack of batteries, plus my rope," said Buster. "Well, I got the lantern and my light and spare batteries," said Hired. "I got my light and pocket knife," said Walter. Jesse said he'd had some waterproof matches in his light. "Well, all right, boys. I got my chalk, and I figure we ought to follow the tunnel of the cave we're in now till it ends or we get out. After that, we can turn back and rethink what we ought to do if we can't get out." "We got to be careful now," said Walter. "That hole I fell in just went right out from under me." "Okay, boys, you lead the way, Jesse. You're the lightest of us all. Hired, you follow Jesse, and then you, Walter. I'll hang back with my rope in case I need to get y'all out of a pickle again. I'll bring the lantern but won't light it. The lantern is our canary. If your breathing gets hard, let me know and I'll light the lantern to see how we stand on breathing air. Now, careful now. Head on out, Jesse." The tunnel went on for about 40 minutes of walking and then began to peter out. It was so small an opening the feller had to crawl. Well, Buster and Walter was too big to get through the opening. The boys all stopped and decided that Jesse and Hired would keep going to see if there was a way out. If there was, they would get help for Buster and Walter. Well, Buster told Jesse to use the chalk to find their way back. About an hour passed before they seed Hired. He come back to report what they seed up ahead. There was a drop-off about 20 feet to an underground river. They could tell it was running south, but then it went out of sight. Jesse was plumb flummoxed by it all. That river could keep going underground, or it could surface as part of the creek by our camp where we kept the milk and other perishables. It would be a heck of a chance to jump in, and a feller just didn't know how long he had to hold his breath to get out, or if and he would. Well, Hired, go back and tell Jesse to get on back here and let's palaver on this for a spell. "Okay," said Hired. "I'll be back as soon as I can." When Jesse and Hired got back, they ate the last of their victuals and was bone-tired. Their lights began to fade, so they all went to sleep for a spell. The boys woke up and was dry as a gourd, and the last of their water was gone after they got a drink or two. Well, Buster said they could try to trap some water dripping through the rock, but wasn't none to be had except near the stalagmites, and they was on the other side of the block tunnel. Well, Jesse and Hired said they could get some with the rope in their bottles if they crawl back to the river. "Well, you two up for that?" asked Buster. "We can get her done." "All right, y'all take on off, and Walter and I will look into the block tunnel again and see if we can find a way to get out. If we can find the source of the gas, we might be able to blast our way out of here." Well, Jesse and Hired let out to get water and was still looking to see if they missed something. When they got back, they said they seen some ledges, but nothing as far as a way out. Well, Walter found a mite of the gas coming out the ground where Hired had lit his and lantern. That gave Buster an idea. He hoped they could figure a way to use the gas when they all got together again. It was getting a mite chilly underground like they was. Hypothermia was on their minds. The boys got back with the water, and they all had their fill of the water. Jesse and Hired both said their piece about taking the river out of there. Where Buster told them all Jesse couldn't hold his breath that long with his asthma. Hired said he could, and especially with the river running as fast as it was. The current would take him on down there a ways. That ain't an option, Hired, said Buster, Walter, and Jesse. That's a death sentence. My idea is like blasting beaver dams and stumps back on the farm. If we can catch enough gas in one of them water bottles and light it with the fuse, it just might blow us a hole to crawl through and to get on out. What y'all thinking on that idea, said Buster. Well, Jesse said the main thing was if the gas would ignite coming from the ground. If it was where it could blow, we would be in worse shape than we are now. We've been down here for better than 42 hours, ain't nobody knowed where we was going. We gotta try something. Okay, Jesse, you can help me and see if we can get a bottle of the gas and we'll give her a try. Well, Buster and Jesse managed to get some of the gas in a water bottle, and then they made a fuse out of part of Hired's undershirt. Jesse, let me have a couple of them waterproof matches you brung. I'm going to light the fuse and seeing if she'll blow. Now all y'all get on back close to that little tunnel towards the river. If it works, we can all get out of here. But if not, y'all can get through to the tunnel and to the river. Y'all will both have to squish Walter through, though. Ain't no way I can get in there. The boys went back to the entrance of the tunnel whilst Buster set the bottle of gas, and then he struck a match and lit the fuse. It blowed all right, but didn't open the way into the main part of the cave. But what it did do was knock Buster colder than a wedge. The boys did everything to rouse Buster, but he just wouldn't come to. Well, Hired said, y'all keep trying to rouse Buster. I'm going to go to the river. Hold on, said Hired, that ain't a good thinking. Walter reached out to get a hold of Hired, but he skedaddled into the tunnel. It's too late now, Walter. Hired is gone, and I can't catch him, said Jesse. I am awful scared we never going to see Hired again. Walter and Jesse both fell asleep, and Buster was still out like a light. The boys woke up and found the air was getting bad. It was so hard to breathe. Jesse said, Walter, you is a lifelong friend, and I'm proud to know you. We've been on many adventures and done some good things in our life. I think the good Lord knows that and will put a few stars in all us boys' crowns. Luck to you, old son, said Walter, and he passed smooth out. Well, Jesse looked over to Buster and Walter and said his prayers for the boys, that was his and brothers, and laid down betwixt Buster and Walter and passed out too. When Hired come up for air, a spitting and a sputtered, he seed the camp, with everybody gone hog wild. When Big Jim seed Hired, he run out into the creek and grabbed up Hired, hugging him and kissing his old hate. Hired said, Pa, you gotta help out the boys. They was trapped in the cave. Boy, that sure enough lit a fire under everybody, I'll tell you. And there wasn't no stopping Grandpa Gus and Mac getting in that cave. They was a hollering there for their youngins. Well, Hired was a shivering, but told about how it all happened and where the boys was. Mac said they ought to be real low if not out of air, but now we got to get to them. We ain't got time to dig them out, and we can't blow the rock pile because of the gas. Me and I'm going to blow the backside of the mountain where it is closest to where the boys are. Bill, get on that riding mule and bring me some dynamite and be quick about it. Well, Big Jim took his excavator with the jackhammer and pounded out a hole for the dynamite. Bill was there lickety-split and handed the dynamite to Big Jim and Grandpa Gus. They got it set, lit the fuse, and hightailed it out of there. It blew a hole big enough to walk through, and Grandpa Gus and Mac was the first ones in the cave. They run to the boys and give them some oxygen they had on the campsite. It was from the National Guard trailers they had there on site. Well, Buster was took to the hospital along with Walter and Jesse and Hired in Russellville. Excuse me, folks. The Malls and other women folk was fit to be tied, I tell you, and wasn't nothing going to keep them from their youngins. Well, Jesse and Walter was the first to come to, but Buster's head was swole up. Oh, boy. Swole up bigger than a basketball, and he had to be kept in a coma till his brain swelling went down. Took about 3 days. When he come to, he was hungrier than a bear. When Buster woke up and seen Hired sitting next to his bed, Buster looked at Hired and said he was glad to see him. Howard, I got a question for you, I said, Buster. "What's that?" said Howard. "First off, it really did take courage to jump in that river. To overcome the fear and frights of the unknown is really extraordinary. You sure had the Lord look out for you, I tell you." "I know that, Buster, and I sure enough was praying." "Just how did you do it? How'd you make it out of there?" queried Buster. "Well, I pilfered 2 of them glow sticks of yourn that you had in your pack. Then I just jumped in after taking a big old breath of air and swam as hard as I could with the current. Them glow sticks sure enough saved my bacon, too. I really didn't think I was going to make it till I see the light of day. Then I just give it all I got till my head come up out of the water and I took that first breath of air. It did seem like it took forever, though. When I come up, Big Jim seed me a-coming and coming running. First time he ever done that, a hugging and a kissing on me, though." "Thank you, Howard. You saved all of us," said Buster. "You know, Buster, I knowed you would have done the same thing. You just couldn't squeeze through that hole," said Howard, a-grinning. Then him a-laughing give Buster a big old hug and kissed his old head. The next week things got back to normal, sort of, but a few things changed. Nobody went into the cave till all the safety folk come and fixed up the cave. Mr. McBrayer had Southern Natural Gas come out and verify it was natural gas, and then they capped it off and put in holding tanks for it. Well, after all that, it was back to business as usual. The cave made a right nice music hall, sorry folks, getting tongue-tied, and the river was now hydroelectric power for that part of the state. There was more than enough of Mozarkite for what was planned. It would last a few hundred years more. The Arkansas stone was as much as an attraction as the Mozarkite. The cave also would give up some of her secrets as well. The turquoise, crystal, and quartz with gold was much to behold. The cave eventually was explored by professionals and made into a tourist attraction with the beauty of the stalactites and stalagmites. Well, Big Jim kept a contract with the state till this day. Bill got an Arkansas Traveler Certificate of being an Arkansan, honorary. All the workers got a huge bonus approved by the legislature and signed by the governor. Now, Buster, Howard, Walter, and Jesse got scholarships to the University of Arkansas, and for all the education they wanted, plus law school for Jesse Durham. The boys, including Bill, each got a percentage based on revenue from the cave and mine. They was set for life. The governor held a special ceremony at the Capitol for special recognition for helping the state of Arkansas and its citizens. The mine was named the Ouachita State Mine of Arkansas with a plaque dedicated to Buster and the boys and their paws and Bill the Kansan. Of course, he really was born in Oklahoma, but he lived in Texas. We won't hold that against him. Of course, their whole names were spelled out along with the Po Boys, the Fernie Hoes, and the Bee Clan. That plaque was a big one, I tell you. Well, all the boys and their paws and the rest of the gang was on television, news, and talk shows, newspapers, and radio. They was asked to speak to all kinds of organizations, too. A Founders Day of the mine was even made, and a state holiday for the mine founders that was the boys and their paws. Howard and the boys and their paws were sent to Washington for a ceremony, too. All the Malls and other family come up to see the doings as well. Well, Howard was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom by the President of the United States as a hero, and the boys and Bill was awarded Presidential Citizens medals, as well as Big Jim, Grandpa Gus, and Mac. "We is in the history books now," said Walter. "We better read up on it. Just a caterwauling. When do we eat?" hollered Buster, and he had the Republicans and Democrats both rolling in the aisles. Needless to say, all's well that ends well. Another adventure, another story. This old Buster